Prawn here with some tips and tricks for Tarkov for beginners. I want to talk to you about various different things that I've learned, little intricate details which will help you get bonus experience points or just make your life a little bit better when playing the game. Now there are a lot of guides out there and Tarkov can be pretty complicated, but I want to give you some really basic things I've found that can be pretty useful. One of which is touching bodies. Now obviously you know if you find a dead body, looting it, you can get some loot, and loot is what the game's all about. However, you can get bonus experience points for just touching a body that's been killed by somebody else. So if you're playing as a team, your friend kills a body, they are looting it for the bonus things, the equipment and loot on there. If you go up and just touch that body, you still get searching experience. Now, sometimes there's a number with that. So, for example, here at 131, the higher the number, the more loot that body has on it. So it may be worth revisiting. But just touching the bodies will give you an experience bonus. Just go around touching all the bodies you see and you'll get searching experience. Now, if you find that you are absolutely stocked up on loot in the game, so you're full, your bag's full, your rig's full, your pockets are full, but you still want to get some stuff, and it's worth trying to maneuver things around a bit, not just getting the things that you want, but other things too. So what I found, for example, is if you go into the looting process and you don't have much space left on you, what it actually pays to do is to still pick things up. So if you take stuff that's in your rig and put it in the loot container, and then take the thing that's in the loot container and put it into your rig, you get looting experience points for doing that. So not just searching the box in the first place, but actually picking it up. So it is worth, if you're safe, dropping the stuff out of your bag into the container, because you get searching experience for doing so when you pick it up. So you can see here, when I take this CPU fan, I've now got looting experience, where I didn't get that before for just seeing it. So it's extra bonus points for doing that back and forth. Now, when you're looting containers, obviously, the other thing that you can do potentially is that you can grab attachments and put them onto your weapons. So this can be another handy way of dealing with it. You can see here that I've found an Ash 12, and there's also a laser which will attach to it in-game. And then there's also a stock for my gun that happened to be in this box that will also attach. So that's another good way to get things out of a raid, is just to slap as many things onto your weapons as possible and then extract with them. Another thing I like to do for bonus experience points is just to eat and drink anything I see. So obviously it's beneficial to eat and drink anyway to keep your hydration and energy up. Even if it's not low and you've got quite high specs there, you might find that basically eating and drinking gives you extra experience, because you do actually get bonuses for doing so. And frankly, you're then not leaving it for the enemy, so the enemies can go thirsty. So if you're on your own solo, or even playing with friends that are well hydrated, just go around drinking and eating everything in sight. If you do manage to fill up your rig and your bag and everything else, then you do need to be aware of potentially dropping your magazines. So you'll see here that my rig, for example, was mostly full, and I needed to reload a mag in the RFB. So you have to take the magazine out of the gun, put it in your rig, and then obviously either pack that magazine or pop a new mag in. Now, if your rig's full, when you go to take a magazine out of your rig to replace it, so you take the magazine out of your gun, there's no way to put it in your rig, so it just gets dropped on the floor by default, and then you grab a new mag out of your rig and put it in. So what you've got to watch out for is filling your rig up too much, and then you end up just losing magazines without even realizing it's happening, because you're throwing the empty ones on the ground, and obviously you want to keep those for the future. Another thing that's super important in Tarkov is ammunition. Now, I like to go to woods and grab ammunition from there, because there's a lot of ammo available on woods in sort of loose containers and boxes. You'll find lots of it scattered around. You can see here that I've grabbed absolutely loads of it, for example. But it's hard to know when you first start out what ammo is good and what is rubbish. And there's so many different ammo types, both of caliber and variations within it, that it's worth learning them. And I would say that it's probably worth finding a gun that you like and then sticking to an ammo type for it. So the caliber, for example, and learning which of those is the best, and then maybe getting rid of the rest. Otherwise, you end up with a stash like mine, which is just full of various different ammo types, and you're not really sure what's what. And it is worth getting rid of the rubbish ammo that isn't going to penetrate or do the damage you need to, because you will lose fights against other players. Luckily, there's this website called eft-ammo.com. You can go there and then you can find out what the best ammo is. You can use this, and there's a search category down there where you can search for specific ammo variations. So, for example, 5.56 by 45 or 7.62 by 3.9. In here, you'll see a chart. And the green numbers, so the higher the number and a green, means that it's best. So if you go for 6, for example, you can see that's the best penetration and damage. and it will go through various different armor types. So BP, GZH, or MAA, AP, those are the top ammo types in this category, and PP is pretty good too. So what you're doing is you're looking at this chart and seeing which ones to sell and which ones to keep. You'll notice those higher level ammos aren't available to be sold on the flea market. That's what no FM means. And you also can't buy them on the flea market. And you can only get these high level types by either finding them in game or buying them from top level traders. So once you've upgraded your traders to those levels. So what you want to do is basically go through your stash once you've collected ammo and sell anything that's rubbish and keep the good stuff. So PPGS, for example, is okay. That's sort of middle of the road. It should be good enough to do some pretty good damage to reasonably geared players. Whereas PRS is pretty naff and you want to get rid of it. HP ammo is pretty terrible. SP is pretty terrible. That'll be good enough to deal with scavs, but probably won't work against players that are even slightly geared. So what I find is best to do is basically, when you've got some downtime, sell all the ammo in your stash that's rubbish, get rid of it, sell it to traders. You're making money that way, but then you can also load up your magazines with the best ammo type that you have. So the best penetration ammo, and then when you're going in game, you're giving yourself an advantage because you're then not going to lose fights quite so often. So this is obviously going to be beneficial in multiple ways. It means you don't have to think quite so much. The other thing that is worth doing that I find is to put that top level ammo into your pouch. So rather than loading multiple magazines into your rig, what you want to do is put some in your pouch. And then when you go into the game, you can then just simply reload those magazines directly from your pouch. This saves you from losing the ammo out of your mags, the high value ammo. If you get killed, you've obviously lost that. If it's in your secure container in the pouch, then baddies can't get it, and that way you get to keep it and take it back into the next raid. And this is potentially good because it's high value ammo that's really worth keeping. When it comes to decent ammo, another way to find it is actually you might find it on scavs and raiders and rogues, so other NPCs. You sometimes will load into the game as a player scav with decent ammo, but you might also kill a scav that happens to have decent ammo on them. So even if their gun doesn't look appealing, for example, the Saiga 9, I don't really like it, it might be worth checking their magazines. You can see this M882 9mm ammo is actually fairly decent ammo. So I've unloaded the scav's magazines and now I'm just stuffing it into my bag instead. I don't have a 9mm gun on me, so it might be preferable to put it in your pouch in this instance. But I want to take this out of the raid because I know it's decent ammo, so it is worth holding on to. Talking of holding on to things, the secure container can also be really useful to stop Tarkov depression. So if you're like me and you're not really good at the game and you just keep dying a lot, it can be really depressing to just keep losing. What I like to do is basically stuff anything and everything in there as soon as I find it, especially like early on in the game, because that stops you from getting really sad if you immediately get killed by somebody and then you've lost all your gear and you haven't got anything to show for it. At least you can come out with something. So learning what is worth putting in your pouch is beneficial. Obviously, there are some things that are pretty clear that they're worth doing. So, for example, gold chain is pretty worth taking. S-Diary is, and a Rolex as well is definitely worth it. So you can move out things that are low value and replace them. Sugar's worth getting, and so is chocolate. It's worth knowing that because eventually you can sell those for pretty decent money. Or for crafting purposes, they can be useful too. Talking of crafting, that can be useful in other ways. So once you start to build your hideout, you get to craft things in the various different med stations and other things in there that will then be useful in various ways, whether that's selling them or whatever else. But they can also be used for tasks. So, for example, you can see there's a task here for therapists to hand in some injectors of morphine. You're meant to find them in raid, but you can actually craft them in your hideout and hand them in. Now, this will work for various different tasks. So any task where you have to find something in raid, you might be able to get away with crafting it in your hideout instead. You can see that I can craft a morphine injector in the med station, go through that process, and then you can actually just hand it in that way. This can make your life a little bit easier. So with armor, you can actually repair your armor, but you can also upgrade it potentially. So it's worth bearing this in mind, both in your stash and in the game. So if you right click it, you can click to get a trader to repair it for you. But if you click on inspect, you can also see that you have armored plates in here of a certain level. So this body armor has 2 plates, front and back, that are level 3. What you'll see is you can also get your potentially plates back if you've insured them. So you can see here I've got one back that's actually level 4, but it has been damaged, so it's come back in insurance. I can actually right-click to repair this as well. Now, well, this obviously will affect the durability, so it won't last as long. Well, you can repair it, and it is then a better type of metal plate. Now, this armor can also be modified. So if you right click and then click on modding, you can then change it. So I can now swap out this level 3 plate for a level 4, and thereby I've upgraded this armor so it will now be more effective, although not as durable over time. You can also take plates out of other people's armor while you're in game and put them in your bag and take them out. Talking of bags, one of the things you can do when you're in-game is take other people's bags by putting bags inside bags. So you can see here that I've got a bag full of loot, and then I found another matching bag with plenty of slots on it. What you can do is drag your bag onto the other bag, so I'm putting my bag inside someone else's bag, and then I put that bag on my back. Now I've still got a full bag, but it's contained within another bag. When you get back to your stash, you can then just take everything out of that bag that's stuffed within a bag, and then you can store bags inside bags in your stash to optimize the space. This can get a little bit messy and seem a bit intimidating, but it can be a useful way to store things in your stash, and you can then multiple stack them up so that you can then use them in future. What you'll see that then you can also use the little drop down. So next to each of the bits of equipment, you'll find a drop down button that you can click on. It's got a little pointy arrow on it. You click on that, and then it'll give you the options for what you've got in your stash for that category. So if it's a bag, for example, it'll let you find the relevant bag in there, and then you can automatically equip it and just put it on without having to find it in your stash, open up all the other bags, click through all the bags, and then pick the one and drag it onto your character. So this can be a really quick way to re-equip ready to go into the next game. This next tip really isn't obvious if you're new to the game, but if you're playing as a scav, there are various things that you need to be aware of. If you're playing as a scav, don't shoot other scavs, because you will lose scav reputation for doing so. Scav rep and rep with fence will help with other things like using the vehicle extract, because the cost of the vehicle extract will come down. But also having a better scav rep means that you can get in quicker in future as a scav, so your cooldown time will be less, and you seem to get better equipment as well. There are other benefits to being a good scav, essentially, that will be wonderful for you. So shooting scavs is bad. The counter to this that's really handy to know is that if you see a scav, a player scav, shooting another scav, whether that's you, your friend, or just some random scavs that you've seen out in the world, if you then kill that player scav because they shot that other scav, you actually don't lose reputation, you actually gain it, and you get more than you do for just surviving and extracting from the game. So you can see from this end of raid data that I have on my scav that I just got out, that I actually get bonus points for a traitor scav kill. So any scav that kills another scav is seen as a traitor, and therefore if you kill them, you then get bonus points for doing it. So watch out for that. If you see it happen, you can take advantage of it by killing that scav. If you go about killing scavs that haven't killed other scavs or haven't shot at other scavs, you will then lose scav rep. And what will happen is you will aggro the AI scavs, so the non-player scavs will be aggroed and they will end up shooting at you. So as well as then having to shoot PMCs and avoid danger from that, you'll also be shot at by scavs as you're trying to extract. So be very careful not to shoot scavs, but do take care to shoot player scavs that have shot other scavs, because they deserve it. Don't try and use this on your friends, though, because that's not going to work. So don't go around shooting your friends when you are playing as a squad as a scav. What I would recommend, though, is using F1, so press F1 to make scav voice noises if you're not too sure about whether there's a scav nearby and you don't want to accidentally shoot a scav. That'll alert them, and hopefully they'll do the same back. Or you can use Q and E to do a little leaning friendly wiggle at them, or you can press K to do VoIP chat, so you can talk to them with your microphone, and then you can say, I'm a scav, don't shoot, and then hopefully it's not a player, and that way there won't be any scav on scav violence. It's hard to know what's good to get out of game when you're in a raid and bring back out with you, but one thing I would look out for is light bulbs. The energy-saving light bulbs that you'll find in the game can be traded for grenades at Prapor level 1. So those white light bulbs you can swap for grenades, and that's a nice way to get some grenades to take into the game with you. When playing as a PMC, using the vehicle extracts on the game can be really beneficial, because it will help with your scav reputation and your fence rep, so boosting that up. And it's also a good way of getting out, but it does cost money, obviously. The more you use it, the less it costs. But if you're playing as a team, what you might find is that sometimes your friends just haven't bought money with them, which can be frustrating, because that means you can't all leave via the same extract. One thing to do for this is if you have bought enough money, you can put it into a wallet and then throw it onto the floor. And so if you've got a wallet equipped, you can then basically put some money in there, put enough money in there, and then they can basically take it again. So you can see that I've got a wallet in my pouch, which I would recommend doing as soon as you get access to a wallet. Get a wallet, put it in your pouch, because then any money you find in the game you can stuff in there. It also means that you can then give your friends money so that they can use a vehicle extract and you can all get out safely together. You can see we managed to do this with 12 seconds left to go when one of our friends didn't have enough money left in there. I gave them some money out of my wallet, put it in their wallet, and then they picked it back up. If you throw money directly onto the floor, sometimes it seems to just glitch out and disappear. So I would recommend using a wallet in place of that because it's less likely to bug out. When it comes to the healing mechanics of Tarkov, there's a lot to know, but the most important things are you want to keep your head, your thorax, and your stomach in good condition. So heal those first of all before anything else. What you want to do is drag the med kit onto the relevant body part, because if you try and just right click and then click use, it will use it in a random place and it won't necessarily be the most important. Keeping your head well healed and your thorax is very important to make sure you don't lose your life. Obviously, if you've lost your legs and arms or have damage to them, that's bad, but your thorax and head are most important and you want to make sure they're in a good state. Now you can drag a CMS onto a relevant body part to fix it when it's completely blacked out, as you can see me doing to my stomach here, but that won't work for everything, so you can't do it to your head, for example, so you definitely wouldn't be able to fix that. But you also want to watch out for other things like bleeds. Different medkits will affect differently in different areas as well. For example, a Grizzly can basically fix everything, and AFAX is pretty good for repairing various different things. Saliwa can actually stop heavy bleeds in place of an S-March or a Calic B, for example, so you can actually stop a heavy bleed without having to use a bandage. So it's worth doing some research and working out what the best med kits are for you. I like to keep my meds in the pouch because, as I said, I die a lot and I lose a lot of stuff, so just putting it in your pockets might mean that you die and lose your high-value meds to other players, which isn't ideal, so I like to keep them in my pouch. But there are some benefits to keeping it in your pocket and then assign it to a hotkey, because you can press and hold a button, then roll it onto the specific body part that you want to fix, so you can actually choose with your mouse wheel which part to fix, rather than having to go into your inventory and then manage it individually like that, where you then can't see the world around you and are exposing yourself to danger. So in order to do this, you first have to get the meds into your rig or into your pockets, and then what you just do is press a button on your keyboard, like 4 or 5, to assign it to that quick slot button. Alternatively, you can grab and drag it down from your rig into the quick use buttons at the bottom, and then that will automatically assign it to that button. And then when you're in the game, just press and hold the relevant button that you've assigned it to, and then roll your mouse wheel over to the specific body part you want to heal, remembering to prioritize your head and thorax first of all. Flares have different uses in the game, but one of the most valuable flares is the red flare. A red flare, if you find it, can be fired into the sky and then cause an airdrop, so an aeroplane will come over and drop a supply crate. It will drop in the area you fire it, so assign it to a hot button and then look up and fire it off into the sky, and then you just have to wait for the plane to arrive and drop things off. This is high danger because it does attract other players to come and loot that box, but it is a good way to get some extra loot out. Now, the flares can also be used for other things, so on certain maps you need a flare for an extract, but they're usually a different colour, not the red one, and you'll need to hunt around for those. Hopefully you found this random collection of tips useful. If you did, smash subscribe to see more in future, and to check out my amusing gameplay videos from Tarkov with me and my friends failing and having a great time doing it. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks very much for watching.